So I quit my job in the startup I was working at in San Francisco, just packed up my bags, and then I moved to Singapore in January. And so I was supposed to be traveling for 3 months. And COVID hit, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna find a job in Singapore so I can stay. And then I found one, and here I am.
But you were a bit strategic with it though, right? Like, because I read your blog a little bit and you did save up a certain amount before you went and stuff like that. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I created a safety net for myself. So I basically saved like 10K as like kind of just money that I would use in case of emergency, like flights or travel, like things like that. So I just felt very secure in the decision that I was making.
I know it can be quite expensive though in Singapore, right? You found us through Millennial Revolution, right? And so then basically you're into the whole FIRE community, standing for financially independent, retire early. Then the lifestyle that most FIRE people look for, it's like kind of low expense, right? That you've kind of found a great way to lower your costs. Can you explain and tell the audience what you did?
Yeah. Well, I will say that first, like, I previously came from San Francisco, right? So just that enough, like San Francisco is like such a high cost of living, and you know, people say like, oh, it balances out with like, you know, the tech salary and whatnot, but still, right? Like sometimes you're paying like $1,700 US dollars for a room in San Francisco. And you know, to be transparent too, like the room that I pay for right now is $700 US dollars, right? So, yeah, but then, you know, everything kind of adjusts itself accordingly based on like cost of living. So for me, coming here was, I guess in Singapore, it can be as expensive as you want it to be and as cheap as you want it to be. Right? If you don't go drinking, you don't have to pay for those like $20 cocktails, right? If you want to go eat, you can eat at like hawker fairs or like, you know, places that are just like more mom and pop stores. Like you don't have to eat at like fancy restaurants. So for me, I think I have a good balance. I like cook at home. I go eat at like cheaper places. I'm more aware of my spending. Yeah, and I still I still save. And then now that I have a job, I will allocate like some parts of my funds and then like wire it back to the US. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Do you mind sharing with us like what your saving rate is?
It's roughly around like 30%. So
nice.
Yeah, so it's not, I feel like in Singapore I don't need that many things, especially with COVID too, right? So there's no, like, I feel I have no need to like shop unless it's food.
What really sparked my curiosity is that I saw in your Instagram profile saying you are in the tech world, but you're not a technical person. So that is really inspiring because I am not technical and it's so intimidating. So how do you get into this world? And can you tell us like some misconceptions of like what people think the tech world looks like?
Yeah. So my role was very non-technical, right? I didn't have to code, but I had to learn the language, right? So I think if anyone wants to break into like, you know, specifically like B2B software, like where things can get really technical, like cloud technology or like any like SaaS tools out there. If you're coming into it, you should understand like the language, right? Like you should know you should research the company. You should know exactly what they do and like understand like coding languages, because once you're able to speak with them about like, you know, their platform and things like that, it doesn't, I mean, it's not that you become like one of them, but it's like, you know how to have conversations with them about like certain technologies and whatnot. So some of the best, I guess, even salespeople, right? Like they don't know how to code, but they do know how to talk the lingo, and that's how they're able to like sell.
But I'm just inspired that, you know, there's other mediums and ways to make money, especially if you don't have a tech background. You can still work in that environment, because right now a lot of people are having that, you know, laid off situation, or they need to find a new job because of COVID. And you know, just being able to see there's like other possibilities and it's okay to start from scratch, that's very inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. Taking a leap and jumping into the unknown can be very scary, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I was in New Zealand like last year, and so me and my friends went skydiving. Yeah, in the moment of free falling, and I was just like, I could die right now because this is really dangerous. And then we were like hurtling through the air, and then I was like, I'm not really happy with my life right now, and like, what are things that I can change? Like, what are things that I've wanted to do and haven't? And I think a lot of people like stay away from risk, right? Like we always like what is comfortable, but I feel like it's just very boring for me, right? Like there are things that I think all of us should try, and as long as you try small things, it can amount to like a muscle that makes you not afraid. I like risk, but I also like calculated risk, right? So it's like I left my tech job in San Francisco, and then to everyone's like, why would you do that? Like your whole family and your community is there. Like you have such a great like boss, but then I was like, oh, but you don't know I have savings, right? So it's like calculated. Like I know this may derail my career for a bit, but I also have savings and I get to do what exactly I've been wanting to do.
Did you get any resistance from your family and friends? Because that must be a bold move.
So I'm the youngest of the family, right? So
Okay.
yeah, my sister is like the golden child. So she did everything right. And then for me, my parents are like, oh, like, go do whatever you need to do. No questions asked. Yeah, but I did face a bit of resistance from my friends and family, right? Because it was very sudden and a decision that I just made. And it is not very normal, I guess, to just, decide like, okay, I'm just going to quit and leave and not really have a plan, right? So for me, I was just like, but why not? Like, this is the time to do it.
You were trying to build your own community, right? At your Fang Finance, because you want to empower women to learn personal finance and investing. And so we're so excited for that, because I find a lot of Asian women are very intimidated by the numbers, and it could be challenging to really take control of our finance.
The resource and like the platform itself is like for every like woman, right? But we've seen a lot of our, I guess, like our followers or our users are around the age of like 20s to 30s. But again, like I think the content that we're pushing out will be like for everyone. The idea behind it is like, start as early as possible, right? Like that's kind of where it comes from. We don't want to limit to like any age. But also just saying like, the best day to start was like yesterday, right? So and also like we're helping people cultivate, like a very like strong mindset, especially at the start of their journey. So for us, it's like we're starting with you at the beginning of your journey, and then like working with you through it. So I guess like the tone that we set is kind of like the older sister who is like we come from like a place of love, but it's also like you need to like get it together, and this is like what we're gonna do together.
Because it's like you're giving more like step-by-step basic information so that they can start off the ground, because it could be very intimidating with all those like jargons, right? Like even 401k equivalent to RSPs, Canadians, it's like, what does that even mean for a young person? It's like, why do I want to figure out retirement right now in my 20s, right?
It's crazy because my previous job, we had someone from our 401k provider come give a discussion, and there's like probably 100 of us at the company, and only like 20 showed up, right? And so I was like really shocked. I was like, is this not important to people? And I was curious, so I was like asking people around. I was like, oh, do you contribute to your 401k? And they're like, no. So it's not just like young people too, but there's people really just don't care, or they don't even want to go into that space because it's so complicated. So yeah, we just want to demystify finance and just make it very like easy for people to digest and understand. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting, because it's such the stereotype from our parents with the old paradigm that save your money, buy a house, that's the safest investment, that whole thing. Did your parents know that you're investing, and what are they saying to that?
That's funny. So my mom, like for me, I invest money in a brokerage account, but I feel like it's mostly like ETFs, or it's a very mixed portfolio, right? But I have some on like Robinhood where it's like I invest in some like companies that I think will do well. And my mom, when I tell her I invest, she thinks that I just I only have stocks. She's like, be careful, like you don't, it's just like a gamble. And I'm like, okay. And then I'll explain it to her, and then she still doesn't feel like it's that safe, right? Because for them, when they came to the US, it's like they just need to save, right? Like the focus was on saving. Like you save everything because when they came to the US, they didn't have much. So investing was like not really part of the equation. It was just save as much as you can, be very, very frugal until you can, continue climbing the corporate ladder and buying a house. So yeah, our mindsets are very different. Yeah.